I'll look at this first one here on moral values. So the argument for moral values goes this way, that if God does not exist, objective moral values and duties do not exist. Objective moral values and duties do exist. That's the second premise. So we use these terms premises, or like these are the assumptions basically. And then logically does it follow that God exists? So if you look at this using truth tables and understanding P's and Q's and all of the truth values of that, we could transform this into symbols. So if P is the statement that God does not exist, this statement is going to be if P then Q, where Q would be objective moral values and duties do not exist. But then this statement down here is the negation of Q, and we're trying to figure out, therefore, does it conclude that the negation of P is true? So here, if we're assuming that this is true, and we're assuming that this is true, can we logically conclude that this is also true? Well, yes. So what happens here is the negation of Q is assumed to be true, so that means that Q is going to be false. But if you have a statement, this first part is something, the second part is false, the whole thing is true, well, true implies false is false, so this can't be true, so that means that this must be false, which then means that the negation of something false is that this must be true. So logical structure, this is a logical argument. Now, what you have to be able to do is look at these and say, do these make sense? Do I believe that these two statements are these indeed true statements? But remember, when we said, are these true, we're trying to figure out, is it more likely that this statement is true or its negation is true? You're trying to figure out which one of these is more likely than the other. So this first one, if God does not exist, objective moral values and duties do not exist. A lot of people, this is actually a pretty good one, right? A lot of people actually do believe this, right? That if God doesn't exist, then it doesn't matter what we do, right? There's no objective moral values. Why? How could objective moral values exist without God, right? How could there be anything like that? So if God doesn't exist, we basically have the freedom to do whatever we want. However, objective moral values and duties do exist. So this statement here, do we believe that it's true that objective moral values and duties do exist, or that they don't exist? Well, if you start to say, well, they don't exist, that I don't believe that they are, well, then what you're also saying is then someone who's trying to say that my objective moral values, whatever I believe to be true, is actually true, and I'm forcing that upon you, you're like, no, you can't do that. That's not okay for you to force your opinions and beliefs on me. Well, then you're trying to state that there's something objectively wrong with that. That it is objectively wrong for me to be able to say that my opinions are going to be correct and that I should tell you about them. So you, on the other hand, have this contradictory idea. So this often is viewed to be true, that indeed there is something objective, that there is morality is objective, that it is objectively wrong to kill a person, right? That's one of the examples, or that it is objectively wrong to rape someone. So we have these objective things that everyone can agree are going to be wrong. So we think that those exist. Once these two are assumed to be true, well, then we have to conclude that God exists. So this is one of the strongest arguments for God's existence.